Hi, horses. Oh, you hope YouTube doesn't pull a Twitch? What, you think I'm gonna get banned for this stream? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I think that you have to go pretty far to get banned from YouTube. Trust me, I've done it. And then I didn't even get banned. No, I didn't finally find James Cantor. Cantor or Cantor? I'll ask him how to say his name. Um, I emailed him about a year ago, I think, for an interview, and he didn't respond. And then my audience got bigger, or I got more persistent. All right, he's here. He's here. Everybody behave. I don't know if I'll look at chat. Maybe I will. I don't know. Let's talk to him about that. Hello? Excellent. I can hear you too. Um, I don't think so. I think I might have nailed it here. Yeah. Oh wait. Sorry. Hold on. They can't hear you. I did screw something up. Okay. Sorry. Talk more. You're hearing an echo. Okay. Why can't? Okay. Just give me 1 second here. That's correct. That's correct. Is output. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yes, tone switched, but perfectly clear.
Okay. Okay. And we can hear you now.
Perfect. And I just realized I was on my these speakers instead of that thing.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
fixed.
Okay, great. You sound good. I sound good. This is good. Okay. So before we begin, oh, I have to. There we go. Okay, before we begin, do you have any questions for me about like the format or like what's happening in general?
Yeah, just a general introduction. I haven't watched your channel, so I don't have an idea of the kind of audience you're aiming for, the kind of challenge anybody's comfortable with. Or
Oh,
for
well,
that
see,
matter, what expectations they're coming in with me. I talk
yeah,
about a lot of controversial issues, and
absolutely.
these peeps don't always play well together.
Okay. You're gonna be like a kid in a candy shop here. You're gonna be happy. So my introduction is most people's first introduction to my content is I made a review of Cuties in which I said that the girls in Cuties were hot, and I said that I think that's part of the challenge of the movie is seeing if you can be induced to being attracted to these 11-year-old girls twerking and forcing you to confront your own participation in a society that objectifies young women, including prepubescent girls, and the kind of moral, uncomfortable space that put me in and that puts the viewer in, and that I appreciated. I thought it was unethical to use children to make the film, but I appreciated the kind of artistic loop that it throws the audience for. So everybody called me a pedophile, of course, as you know, as you have experienced yourself. I believe.
Not a day goes by when I'm not called something.
Okay, well, good. And today will be no exception. Yeah, so I got banned from YouTube for a few months until they actually looked into my content and they're like, oh no, that he's not actually promoting child abuse. This is fine. They unbanned me. I made a rap song called "I'm a Pedophile,"
Ooh.
and then I made a whole rap album. I made a bunch of other content, and I started streaming. And yeah, so I've been on YouTube for 4 years. Pedophilia is one topic I have brushed on a few times. Now I'm very interested in it as the place where thought crime seems to be, taking over, taking root, where
You
people seem
feel
to
comfortable condemning thought crime if that's the thought.
exactly, yeah, and so I'm very anti-thought crime. So naturally, I'm drawn to the topic, and also just human sexuality
You're
is interesting
anti-thought
to me.
crime.
I'm anti-thought crime, yeah. So I think we probably see eye to eye on a lot of things, and so I'm willing to make my own audience extremely uncomfortable. So whatever you want to say, there's no point where I'm going to say like, oh, this is too much. Whatever you believe or have found in your research or you want to share with us, we're ready to ride the roller coaster. Okay, so how do I pronounce your last name?
Cantor.
Cantor. Okay, like the deli.
Oh, wow. You've been?
I've been, yeah.
Good for you. Yes,
Thank you.
exactly. Same. We're not related in any way that we know, but same rough area of Europe that many generations ago.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so uh, one other note about thought crime and about you. I read, so you were on the board of, or were you the head of the SSSS?
Oh, no. I was just a regular member, just like anybody else. I
Oh,
had no.
okay. You were just a regular
Uh,
member, but you had to resign from.
no. I didn't have to resign. I did
You did
resign.
resign.
Yeah. They this was on trans issues. Is I present the science of trans issues the same way that I present the science of any issues.
Right.
But as you know, many other people who don't actually know the science of it, got involved with much more personal, much more emotional reasons about it. Just did not want to hear anything that was not flattering. How good the research methods were was irrelevant. How flattering the results were all that mattered. Somebody said something on their listserv. I said that's not right, and whatever the evidence was. And then I got an email from the board of directors that I was getting kicked off the listserv for saying something offensive to that person.
Yeah. So I read this whole thread.
Oh, yep. Right, yep. And then I pointed out that the board of directors has no such power. To which they shut down the entire listserv altogether.
Just for you.
Just to hide from the lawyers that they were afraid, right. They knew they
Okay.
screwed up, and rather than leave any evidence for it, we just decided, so there's nothing to sue them over.
Okay. So
and then, of course, when it was clear this group is not interested in the truth.
right. So you presented
That's when I
your
resigned from that.
okay. So you presented your case basically saying we in talking about trans people and especially children transitioning, we haven't really defined what being trans is. So is it a declaration that you're trans, or is it actually going through the surgery, or is it something in between? And most people seem to believe it's somewhere in between. I guess the most progressive stance is that if you say you're trans, then you are.
No, I think you're granting much more thought than is going on. What I actually think is going on is people will adopt whatever definition suits their purpose of the moment, and will
Yes,
adopt another definition
that's
as
true.
soon as that one does.
That's fair. Most people don't have a
So,
definition of what being trans is. That's true. And then you were talking about when is it appropriate to begin transitioning. So you have at birth, and then you have after the age of 30 or whatever. You had a range there, and you said I think 12. You said should be the floor, because you said most people who are having gender dysphoria before 12 resolve those feelings in puberty, and then most people who have dysphoria in puberty do not resolve those feelings after puberty.
yeah, that's what it looked like 10 years ago. By 5 years ago, the story started changing.
Okay.
The first studies on this came out in the early 2010s. Those were the early Dutch studies. De Vries was the author. De Vries et al. 2011. Then there was a De Vries et al. 2014. And what they showed in both of those studies, and this is, a well-known clinic that has participated in, high-end science, so as I said, I was convinced by the early evidence. They had samples of kids who were clearly feeling dysphoria from the get-go in that clinic for long periods of time, and then maintained. And these were the kids then who did not desist, continued past that age, and now these were the first follow-up studies of them. Great. And they seem to have improved it after transition. Okay, so what the Dutch model was doing, which was puberty blockers at 14 and then cross-sex hormones at 16. So they were pulling that back from 18. That's what that research was. That's what the experiment was. Can we bring this back a little bit? Does that help? And these data suggested yes. But then what started to appear in other studies now the few years after that, where the Dutch results weren't getting replicated, that's when people started contrasting, well, what's happening differently between these two clinics that's giving a different result? What that has worked out to be is that in the Dutch clinic, they weren't only getting medical transition, they were also getting psychotherapy at the same time. Not this other clinic. The setup in the other clinic had psychotherapy, psychotherapy only, and psychotherapy plus medical intervention. They both improved the same amount. The medical interventions didn't add. Voila. So now it looks like it was the psychotherapy that was producing the improvement. So so that's when all of a sudden, hang on here. So now early in the story, so those earlier age, that looked like to be where it was going. But now, as we have 12 to 15 studies now, we now have a much more consistent story. If there's psychotherapy in the mix, they improve. If there's no psychotherapy in the mix, they get worse. So what I tell people now, is the current stage of the research
is go to therapy.
Essentially, but I don't want to say that 100% either. There is room, and some of these kids can do fine. So at least therapy, and a legitimate go at therapy, should at very least be the treatment of resort. Exhaust that before we start, doing really dramatic things.
Yeah. So you know how we always say conversion therapy doesn't work for gender or sexual orientation or sexual proclivities or anything.
I've heard that said.
I've heard it said too. But I think that usually in most cases of conversion therapy, the therapist hates you or something. Like if you're going to therapy to be straight, the therapist already thinks it's not good. It's bad to be gay. They're probably not a very good therapist. They're probably not going to be able to connect with you very well anyway. So I feel like
I hesitate to go that far. I think a lot of people are projecting a lot of things onto a lot of different people, and they're all just really applying stereotypes.
Okay.
First, conversion therapy, when we're actually talking what was attempted in laboratory studies and measured before and after and led us to show this actually isn't making a difference. That was about sexual orientation.
Yes.
Full stop. Not about gender, not about the other.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say that's generalizable to gender. I'm saying that.
No. But that's the part where people are saying.
That's yes, and I agree. I agree. They're completely different things, and that it's a conflation because we say LGBT as though they're all the same thing. But I also just want to say, when you said a genuine go at therapy.
Yeah.
That if your therapist is trying to help you accept your body at birth because they're a conservative or because they don't like trans people or something, I don't feel like that is a genuine go. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that the politics have
that's rare how it happens.
Okay.
Usually it's the client looking for a therapist in whatever mindset they're in.
Okay.
It rarely comes in, I kind of have these feelings and I don't know what to do about them. They come in and I need your signature in order to get my surgery. What do I do? Or I picked you out of the Christian counseling list because that is what they do.
Okay. I think I'm not talking about so much how it actually happens versus the public's view of conversion therapy as a hateful practice of people being brainwashed to um, suppress themselves somehow.
Yeah, I think that's generally the vision that most people have. It's
But
not particularly accurate, but
yeah, but so
the
when you
vision that
say a
most have.
genuine go at therapy, that's obviously not what you're talking about.
Oh, no, 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 no. It's, I mean, figuring out what actually is the issue with this person that's making them think that life would be better as the other sex.
Right. And so and that is the part that's seen as transphobic, where you're saying that you're not letting the person define what their issue is.
Uh, I can't think of very many situations in psychotherapy where the patient does come in and tell the
There are
therapist what's wrong.
there aren't any. I think it's just this one.
So as I said, the
Yeah, I'm not
they
saying
came in
I
and
don't
saying expecting being support. Well, that's not how therapy. That's one. That's not how therapy works. Two, the issue is not, let's help you feel comfortable in your new sex. That already assumes that we know what the source of this discomfort is, and that it's their sex. There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for, I should say, this enormous demographic that has just kind of emerged on gender issues since the invention of social media, but was entirely unknown to sex research and gender studies, as I say, until social media.
mm-hmm.
It is clear, from the demographics, the epidemiology, pick any way of looking, this is a new group unrelated to everything we've known about transsexuality before.
Mm-hmm.
What this group has in common is where the other groups were majority male and either prepubescent or middle-aged. These are adolescent females.
Mm-hmm.
The primary issue that these people present with, but are using now different language to describe, is not, I feel like a boy. It's, I don't feel like a girl.
Mm-hmm.
They hate their bodies in a way that, cutters, borderline personality disorders. This is the very common, I should say, or common, I can say, adolescent female self-esteem issues. I feel ugly. I can't compare to these idealized extreme versions of femininity now circulating on social media. So by claiming, not I'm a boy, but I'm non-binary, I'm fluid,
I'm not a
those are
girl.
all just, don't compare me with girl, I'm this other thing. Not the same as I'm a boy. It's a way to escape the pressure of adolescent. So it's not psychotherapy. So it's not, the conversion therapy that, let's convince you that you're not trans, you really belong in the usual. It's, let's get you comfortable with your body in the same way that we would get any adolescent female who's insecure about her body to be comfortable with her body. And then let's see if you still want. That's not conversion. Let's not immediately conclude that this brand new thing, which again, epidemiologically, biologically, matches these other, kinds of disorders that, fit that demographic and that we have a huge amount of history solving. We've seen this before in mental health with the repressed memory syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
Recalled, memories of abuse. They were in genuine distress and needed genuine therapy. But it wasn't about the issue they were saying it was. What they were saying was a way to, kind of get people around them to treat them in another way. But
yeah, my I made a pretty lengthy video essay about this, and my kind of thesis was that we are throwing trans people under the bus by allowing them to transition so quickly and easily, and assuming that they get to decide that their body is the problem, when I think it's how we treat kids and how we treat basically taking our societal problems with gender and allowing these people to go under the knife as supposedly the solution, which I don't think it is.
I think actually a lot of different things are going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A large chunk of this, feels like attention seekers enabling attention seekers.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And so a lot of the care providers are, look what a wonderful, open-minded, rainbow-oriented care provider I am. Aren't I fabulous? It's like some of these people are trying to make up for what they did wrong during the AIDS era. It's
That's interesting.
despite everybody being able to recite the words that gender identity is different from sexual orientation, everybody's behavior, their
Is
thinking is
identical.
really just
Yeah.
draw an analogy. What would we have done with the gays? Well, this is just the modern version of it, so let's do the same.
Right, but it's not the same thing.
The gays never desisted,
gay
so the
people,
genders aren't going to desist.
again, gay people were not asking you to, cut their genitals off.
Mostly was just get out of our way.
Yeah. I also made the argument that I think progressives are not good at setting boundaries with minority groups.
I hesitate to make any generalization on this because it is so social media related. So it's the 98% are just sitting aghast watching 2% of the people who produce half the tweets. Is that, I mean, so people aren't really talking to each other. It's just, as I say, who says the most extreme things? It's
no, this has not been my experience.
It's the people with the tweet to follower ratio of one extreme versus the people with tweet to follower ratio of the other extreme.
I get what you're saying, but this has I mean, look at your listserv conversation. This has permeated my personal life in every area. I mean, like,
our conversation involved 5 people out of a membership of 1,000. It is exactly like that situation.
That's fair. I had a friend of mine hang up on me the other day because I said I didn't think the "Don't Say Gay" bill was an atrocity.
Oh,
so maybe we just come from different social circles, but in my social life, that this Twitter shit is like real, like that people really are, as not as radicalized as like the far most Twitter accounts, but like they're pretty polarized.
Oh. I do agree very much that we have phenomenal polarization.
Yeah.
But to me, these are the 2 pieces of the same feedback loop, with so many moderates and even-handed just not wanting to get in the middle of it. All we hear is from one set of extremists, which just trigger the other set of extremists, which make the moderates want to get even further out, and it just so it is making people more
polarized.
It is facilitating the polarization because so many people are exposed primarily now to the most extreme opinions. So it pushes people further and further out and gets the moderates quieter and quieter. So as I say, I think these are feeding each other. I have no opinion about which started, if yin started yang, but I think these are related phenomena. But I still, despite a genuine increase in polarization, it's the social media, of course, just magnifies it.
Yeah, I think in addition to attention seeking, social media is the grinder that people are afraid of being thrown into. It's not just that they want attention. I think they're also scared of the tweet that is about you, and that gets, like you see people get destroyed on Twitter all the time, who have no following. Somebody gets recorded saying like the N-word at their kid's soccer game, and then their life is over.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that is a Twitter thing. It can get, caught on anybody's camera at the same game at the same time.
Yeah, but there used to not be a mechanism for that spreading like wildfire and ruining your life within minutes.
The speed is certainly faster, but I think we're next door to what the driving force is. The driving force is self-righteousness. Let me show everybody else how much better I am, so let me decry this other
I think
one.
I have more empathy for these people than you do.
I do my best not to have any emotions about any of it at all.
Oh, well, do you think you're bitter?
Bitter?
Yeah.
Uh, there's an easy streak. I don't know if I can differentiate bitter from disappointed, but I am a person of ideas. I like interesting ideas. I like difficult ideas, and that has become much, much harder to do. There is no anymore community to just, well, let's what if and go down
Well, we were
that
here.
line.
I welcome you. This is the community where you can do that. Bitterness is disappointment minus charitability.
Oh, I thought you were going to say time, but okay.
Bitterness is time. That's it. Bitterness is human plus time. Okay.
I can't say the part that makes me not particularly bitter is that it hasn't cost me anything. I'm not the one at risk.
Yeah.
I'm not the one, I'm 56 years old, the early, confused before coming out and the AIDS era, all of that is done financially, lifestyle, all, I really have no complaints. So I'm not the one, but
I'm at risk.
Of the whole youth, y'all.
Yeah.
No, you do not deserve the world that you're given. Although, as I say, the youth themselves are doing an awful lot of making their own situation no better, or at least the kind of problems that need to be solved in the world are not the problems that are online. But that's where everybody is.
Yeah.
So as I say, it's not like I didn't get anything that I personally wanted or needed out of this career or life or existence.
It's just, but it hurts.
But I want,
like you seem, even reading that listserv exchange, you seem hurt.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe I'm projecting my own pain, but yeah. Disappointed in like I don't know. It seems like you have good intentions, and to have people, basically call you evil and say that you're so evil that the listserv needs to be shut down, seems like it's got to hurt your feelings.
No, it's like if I'm listening to a patient, and whatever psychotic words is coming out of their
we can't
mouth,
we can't all be your patients. At some point, don't you?
No. I'm saying
you need something from other.
No. I'm recognizing that the particular people behind that, and the personalities, and the people who need to do that, are doing that at a position of pain.
Yeah. But even that I think that also must hurt you on some level, to have to flip that switch in your brain to like where you're not talking to your colleagues anymore. You have no hope of being listened to. You're back in the therapist chair talking to a person who is flooding the space with their own pain, and there's no room for you.
No, that's not at all how I see the situation. And of course, I remember posting, all of the back channel support that I got. It's my mindset is more like, a wounded dog tied to a tree it's gonna hurt me, but I'm not blaming the dog for the position it's in. It's in pain. It needs help.
Well, you can be hurt without blaming. Wait, I have a question from the chat. They want to know if you think the social contagion hypothesis of why there's so many girls who want to transition has any merit to it. I assume the answer is yes.
Yeah,
obviously.
No, there's no other. Nobody's
explanation
provided any other kind of an explanation that even comes close.
The progressive explanation is that it's so accepted that now we're finding out that everybody is trans, but that doesn't.
But we're not finding out everybody is trans.
We're finding out that this
demographic group, most susceptible to social contagion,
are trans, right? Just as they were cutters, just as they were anorexics.
People who hate their bodies.
As Hannibal Lecter said, Billy hates his identity, and he thinks that makes him a transsexual.
Oh, uh, no, in a case like that would be much more related to, again, what we call autogynephilia. You know, he was attracted to himself in another
That's true.
form, but because that character was also psychotic, you know, he had a crazy idea of how could accomplish that. Uh, but his motivation for transition, if we can call it that, was unrelated to
The
uh,
teenage girl,
childhood
the
onset
average teenage
cases
girl.
or the adolescent onset cases.
What do you think about autogynephilia
What do I think about it? I think it's fascinating. It's
as
a
a as an explanation for male to female
it's
transition?
same. It all of a sudden it explains a huge range of phenomena like no other idea does. It's not popular in the trans community because they don't want to be thought of as a man with a fetish for being a woman. They want to be thought of as a woman.
Yeah. Well, and nobody wants to be thought of as very sexual at all.
Oh, no, that's not true.
I think it's true.
I think in polite society, people avoid it out of habit, but I've got to be misunderstanding what you're saying. People don't
Well,
want to be thought of as.
I don't think so. I think it's undermining to say your identity is in large part because of sex. I think
Oh,
that's part of what's hard about being gay or coming out as gay is that you are you're outing yourself as a sexual person, and the specifics of your sexuality have their own connotations and resistance from society. But it's also, I think there's just part of it where you are just telling people you're sexual, but
I
your
can't.
average normal straight person doesn't have to do that.
No, I can't say that either my coming out my coming out as gay or any of my clients who have come out as anything from gay to transsexual to whatever paraphilic interest it is. No, it wasn't about acknowledging being sexual.
I'm not saying
It
that
was
I'm not saying you're coming out to acknowledge that you're sexual. I'm saying part of what is stigmatizing about it is that you're wearing your sexuality, that the fact that you have sexuality and that it's very important to you on your sleeve. I think that it's safer for trans women if there is autogynephilia. I think part of why they don't want to own that is that you don't want to admit that like being horny is a big part of your life, and it's much safer to say, oh no, this is only for emotional reasons, or this is my identity, this is how I feel safe, this is how I feel comfortable looking in the mirror. These are all things we're much more comfortable talking about and owning.
There's an element of that, but I don't think those situations are comparable. Coming out as gay or with a fetish, which is only relevant when you're actually playing with it, is not overtly sexual. Usually, the gay part, let me split those, is usually don't ask me about a girlfriend, don't introduce me to your sister. Yet it's just knowing socially how to interact with the other person, and you need to be able to come out in order to be, oh, so what'd you do this weekend? Oh, so did you and whoever your partner is? Oh, so how did the date? It just knowing
I
what's
think,
going on in the person's life,
but I think
it's usually a part of that. But whether the person's a top or a bottom, now, right now,
sure
it's a more
that gets more
overtly,
specific, but I think
right, it's not just a social nicety.
I think gay relationships are inherently more sexual.
uh Gay
In ha-
male relationships are.
sure.
Lesbian relationships, not so much.
Even okay, I don't mean that they have sex more. I mean that like when a man and a woman date, it's like you're supposed to. You know, you're dating because you're supposed to, or you're dating because you want to have kids. It's expected of you to pair bond with a member of the opposite sex, and then eventually live together. And it's like, yeah, you might want to have sex with each other, or you might not. But when two men start dating, it just feels more like like having sex is, at least at first, or in the concept of the relationship is higher on the list of priorities.
Yeah, because you have, in this case, two men. You don't have one of the women, essentially acting
or
as
or
a
or even or even
control rods
or
to pace it a bit.
well, even two women. If I see two women like at a party or dinner, or whatever, it's like they're together because they like fucking each other. No one's telling them to be together.
Oh,
You know, I
the
just think there's
full
a there's
range
a
of
there's a
introverted.
baldness to the to sexuality that is that cis straight normies kind of get to hide behind. So I'm just saying that I don't think the only reason people don't want to cop to autogynephilia is that it's I think everybody doesn't want to cop to their sexual motivations for their behavior. If there's another thing they can hide behind, I think they usually will.
Not crazy. But it's not like these people are walking, even though they're, presenting in whatever their new sex is, they're not, walking around all day aroused with erections, until surgery and blah, 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 blah. That's not the status of it. It's more like there are situations in which one is aroused and arousable in the company of one's partner. And then there's just, day-to-day stuff where it's just there you are. So, the autogynephilic experience is much more, by the time they're ready for surgery, it's, they're so blended that it's not an aroused state, even though there
Sure.
might have been this big fiery kind of thing, when they were first discovering it.
Um. Okay. You didn't want to say that progressives are bad at setting boundaries with minority groups.
Oh, I just hesitate
To speak in
to.
such broad strokes.
Yeah, because there are so many different groups that have broken off in so many different ways. And again, the Twitter, the internet, and social media have so distorted our ability to see what's common versus what's commonly posted.
Yeah, let me
And there are so
rephrase
many
that.
just saying nothing.
The progressive narrative and progressive leaders and let's say progressivism isn't good at setting boundaries with minorities as a ideology, not as individuals.
Again, who were the progressives? The people who called themselves liberals 10, 15 years ago, or the woke who are around now?
The woke who are around now. I don't mean 10 or 15 years. 10 or
I
15
wouldn't
years
have
ago.
called them I don't think the woke are progressives.
Okay, but they self-identify as progressives. You know who I'm talking about.
I know the basic, idea of that gang, but I don't really interact with them outside of when they just kind of knock on my virtual doorstep.
Okay, when I see Joe Biden tweet out that there is essentially a holocaust of trans murder victims
Uh-huh.
because 20 trans people were murdered in a span of 8 months or something.
Hmm.
To me, that is a sign that of progressives or progressivism not being willing to say like, hey, that's not true. We're not going to say that.
To me, it's science denial, and I don't care if it comes from the progressives or the conservatives. The science says, that that's not the pattern that it's showing.
Well, there's science denial. Yes, there's science denial on both sides, but the science denial on the left, I think, usually comes in the form of a minority group saying, hey, can you deny science for us? And then the left says, yes.
To me, that's the symptom, not the motivator. The
I'm not saying
motivator
it's a
is,
motivator. I'm just saying that
oh,
I just think that it's a pattern I see. I'm wondering if you want to speak because I'm trying to lead into the pedophilia thing because I think
sure.
this because I think boundaries are going to be really central to our discussion of pedophilia or into any discussion of pedophilia
Yeah, no, and I think the way that I am looking at it holds and including for pedophilia. People are remarking not according to the science, but according to what will make them look good to their peeps to say. To me, it's that the extremists on the left,
Mhm.
so far they're falling off the edge, the other side falling off and they have met around the far side of planet crazy. So
Yes, that's
whether
fair.
they're to me, it's like saying which ones are the crazier, this religious group or that religious group?
I think it depends on the topic. I'm interested in challenging the two groups not as a monolith of crazy people, which I understand why you want to do that. But
Not a
I
monolith of crazy people,
okay,
but the exact hallucination that they're having is irrelevant.
yes, that's a grouping that you can make. I'm interested in, as we get into the pedophilia discussion, addressing conservatives are afraid. So when conservatives hate me, they're afraid that I am going to push for LGBTP and that I'm going to say pedophilia is just like any other sexual orientation, and they need to go, pedophiles need to be accepted just like everybody else, and they need to be free to have their sexual needs met by having sex with children, and we need to lower the age of consent to 5. That's what I think. That's what conservatives are afraid, that I represent the slippery slope, and they're like, okay, we let gay people do it, we're the trans people, fine, like, but you have to stop. And so I want to engage with that idea of like, yes, that is kind of crazy, but at the same time, I get why they're afraid of that. I don't think it's completely unreasonable. I don't think it would
I would not
happen.
accept at face value that that is the cognitive processing going on. You have presented, what you said is something that gives them an opportunity to demonstrate their superiority to you. That was the processing.
Self-righteousness.
Yes. Virtue signaling on the internet, and adopt whatever issue you can twist to make it look like you're the superior person. Dismiss the other.
To use your own argument against you,
Yep.
I agree that the loudest and proudest probably are virtue signaling and don't really believe what they're saying. But I think that their followers, many of them, are genuinely afraid. I'll just say, I've received so many hate comments, often anti-Semitic, about me being a pedophile, and emails and messages and blah blah. Probably like 1,000 death threats or something. Many of those people, I believe, are genuinely afraid that they're like, well, if liberals are going to say they're okay with X, Y, and Z, if they're okay with like a mob of rioters, if they're okay with a mob of riot setting fire to a police station,
you're the first target.
No. I'm just using myself as an example because I'm also trying to tell you something about myself, and at the same time, I don't think this is unique to me. I'm just saying that I get from their point of view, if they're like, well, they're like, I'm watching liberals say that a bunch of black people setting fire to a police station is a peaceful protest. So who's to say that the next thing they're going to say isn't going to be that we did some research and we found out that children can have sex at age 9 and it doesn't harm them at all, and it's fine, and so we're like, I don't agree that this is all in bad faith. I agree there's some liars at the top, self-aggrandizing, but I think there is a genuine fear that progressives will not set boundaries with anybody's sexuality for any reason.
I think if you go through all the different debates and say, is this explained by virtue signaling versus every single one of them, and they will end up agreeing and disagreeing with people that they otherwise wouldn't until you tell them that. And it's everyone, and you just happen to be the current opportunity for them to say, look how much better I am than this one. And they were talking about how much they were better than they were somebody else the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. It had nothing to do with you. You were just, the convenient stone to step upon by which for me to announce my superiority.
Okay. So I do believe that I am coming at this with at least more charitability than you are. Whether it's merited or not, I think we can both agree that I'm willing to entertain the my ideological assailants. So I think our roles are set, right, for the pedophilia discussion. I'm going to be saying, yeah, but what about blah blah, and you're going to be hitting us. You're going to throw the cold water in our faces about pedophilia, which I think that's what you like to do. And you've got a big bucket of ice water there, so you might as well throw it on us.
All I do is know the research, and I tell
Okay.
everybody what the research says, and it's up to
And
everybody
you have
else from
no
there.
idea what the reaction to that is going to be. You have
I'm just not letting the reaction change my, this is what the science says. Sorry if you don't like it.
do you take pleasure in freaking people out?
No. In fact, I generally do my best to start where they are and bring them step by step to whatever the piece of knowledge is. I'm just unafraid to,
Yeah.
I'm not going to self censor because somebody doesn't want to hear it. That's how we got to this situation where we are now, is everybody is
I see how
all
hard it
the,
is to believe this when someone else is saying it. But I feel just the same way. I don't enjoy freaking people out. I'm just very willing to. Okay, so we're two guys who don't enjoy freaking people out. I'm ready. You said you want to start with where people are. My audience, I think, is pretty much where I am. So, you, the floor is yours. Do you want me to call you James or Dr. Cantor?
oh, James works.
James, the floor is yours. Let's take us through what is pedophilia. How are we wrong about pedophilia? You can skip the pedophilia isn't the same as child molesting part. I think we're on board with that already. But what's is it a sexual orientation? Is it a disorder? How should it be classified? How should it be talked about? Just like, I don't know. What do you think we need to face? What are we avoiding?
Each of those is a great question. By the time I think about the first, I'm not going to remember any of the others. Take me to the first one.
What is
Uh,
pedophilia?
depends on the context.
It,
Usually, when we're talking about it, it's sexual attraction to children. In some circumstances, it's useful to subdivide that into sexual attraction to prepubescent children, because we need some cutoff. And we'll often use a different word to refer to the sexual attraction to pubescent children, on average 11 to 14-ish, pimples, funny looking age. We would call that hebephilia. And then, people do debate over, where do you draw the line for what circumstances, and where you
yeah.
draw the line for science doesn't always match up with where you draw the line for religion or for society and law. They don't always match up.
Okay.
So when we're doing research, at very, very specific, narrow research, we will talk about sexual attraction to prepubescent children. Although a lot of people have done a lot of research, using broader age ranges.
Okay. Um, if I said the girls and cuties were hot, am I a pedophile?
No, probably
If,
not.
if I
Well,
found
it works the other way. Most pedophiles would find a lot of that arousing, but it doesn't work the other way around. The way the male, brain works is to identify, potential erotic targets in the environment. Is exactly the same way that our brain focuses on finding potential predators in the environment. So if we design something that looks like it has a lot of the cues,
mm,
the shape,
yeah,
the
I hear
image,
you.
and so on, then it's more likely to trigger the neural circuitry that was designed
I did
to
feel
pick that
triggered.
stuff up.
I felt
But
triggered by cuties. I
that's
saw I
you can
saw
feel it.
yeah. Okay. If if I watch cuties for the purpose of sexual gratification, am I a pedophile? Let's say I watched 95% adult porn, normal porn. I have a
Yeah.
girlfriend, but 1 in 20 times when I open up my laptop, I say, and today I'm watching cuties. Am I a pedophile?
Now, again, the other technical part of the definition we use in both, clinical purposes and science is that it's a preference for. It's not just the occasional or fleeting fantasy, especially when one is a teenager oneself.
Mhm.
It's having a preference for. So it would be the majority of one's, imagined masturbatory
Okay,
fantasies.
so if I masturbate to cuties 49% of the time,
Again, I don't know exactly how we could come up with such a precise
a
number.
stopwatch,
Okay. If
a
again,
bottle of
context.
Astroglide, a towel, and a stopwatch.
if a patient comes in and says that's what they're enjoying, but they have no motivation to touch an actual person, it's irrelevant. Enjoy it. Have a good time. It's
Yeah, but would you still
harmless.
classify maybe it's harmless, but would you still classify that person as a pedophile in
Uh,
your scientist's brain?
if I were running a study and if my operationalization were actually 50%, then yes, I would rule out
But I get that
49%.
that's what I'm asking you is what in the study of your mind, what is it how do you draw a line? I guess is what I'm asking. I see you drawing a line at, are you going to harm a child? Are you going to harm yourself? Are you feeling distress? Is there a percentage of predilection line? Like if I, do you get what I'm asking? Like
Yes,
we
the question you're asking is what in science we call construct validity.
okay.
You're missing a question. How do we know what the right definition is? That's general. In science, how does one ever know when the definition that you're using is the correct definition? How do we identify the correct definition?
Yeah,
It's
and
not
in
it's not a
psychology,
committee.
it's usually when it's harming somebody. But so
I did it. I don't know if that's
that's what it is I think.
psychology. Again, there are committees who will produce one, but that's not the scientific
What would
answer.
your definition be?
You're asking me for a single definition which would work in every circumstance, and there isn't one.
Do you have a definition of being gay?
Uh, yes, but we'll run into the same issue
We can
when
find
we.
edge cases that don't meet your definition. You'll still say that person's gay. Or cases that do meet your definition, you'll say that person's not gay. But do you have a rough ballpark definition of being gay? Like you're willing to answer that.
Right, and the
Okay, so
same with
what's
a
your
rough ballpark definition of what it is to being pedophilic. But when you want
okay?
more details, then
Then it
all
starts to break
right.
down.
Well, then it's what if I get a guy, for
The,
example, a masochist. He's turned on by the idea of getting fucked, but not in the way that gay men enjoy getting fucked. A masochist enjoys it because he finds it humiliating.
right.
There are men in his sexual fantasies. He's having sex. He's bottoming for
He may
men.
not be gay. He may not be gay in the same way as most men are gay. Okay, so
But if he thinks he is, but he's actually not.
okay, so I think this is good.
But now it's okay. If my purpose is I'm in a program trying to prevent HIV transmission,
Then
I'm
for
going
that
to count
purpose,
him as
yeah, okay,
gay.
yeah, okay. So let's say the context is you're on a live stream now. The context is we're talking about we're talking about rarity. So this is not calling. We're not labeling people pedophiles in this conversation for the purpose of I don't know, harm reduction. Just right now, I want to just get to the definition of how unusual, because it doesn't make sense to call someone a pedophile, I think, if like 40% of the population is a pedophile. But then
Now you're getting to how do we find the right definition is when it allows us to make an accurate prediction about future behavior. The definition that allows us to make the best predictions is the best definition. But
okay.
sometimes when we're trying to predict different things, different definitions are the best one.
Okay. Okay. For the word pedophile to have meaning, what percentage of the population do you think like should be labeled a pedophile? We could kind of reverse engineer it and let's say like 3% of the population, we can just say they're pedophiles. And then we find the most pedophilic 3% and then say, okay, whatever that is. You know what I'm saying? Because what? Okay, do you have a sense of what percentage of the population you would consider to be pedophiles?
My best guess would be a fraction of a percent, but it's not like we can conduct a survey and get any meaningful responses. The best we have done, the best we probably ever will be able to do is testing thoroughly sex offenders who get a clinical exam in order to help shunt them into the right kind of treatment programs.
But then there's
So
all
we can
kinds
get
of
right. This is no longer the
they're not
population.
normal
This is a
people, right?
population of apprehended and convicted and served their time
Okay.
sex offenders.
Okay, so a fraction of a percent. What is a pedophile? If we're talking about the rarity of and the severity of attraction and the broadness of attraction within a person. How could you ballpark explain that to us so that we can
I guess I kind of want
conceptualize
to
it?
normal curve people's, or humans, I should say human males, age preferences.
Okay.
At the very young ages, as I say, small fraction of a percent. So prepubescent, fraction of a percent. Pubescent age, 11 to 14, 2% ish would
And when you
not be crazy.
and you're saying this is the
A preference.
dominant preference. They're saying if
are,
I could have any woman in the world, I would have a 5-year-old.
That's
Any female.
nope.
Any female.
No, that's a different question.
That's not a preference?
It's a preference for a different thing. It's instead of a preference for, somebody who's attracted to 12-year-olds,
mm-hmm.
It's not, I want a 12-year-old, it's I want to masturbate about 12-year-olds. But the idea of an actual 12-year-old
is different.
Right, because so many know the downside and it's manipulative and so on. And so the fantasy, the image is different from
also if an adult has a fantasy about a 12-year-old, the 12-year-old in your fantasy is being puppeted by you and written by you, and so they're not actually behaving like a real 12-year-old. They're behaving the way you are fantasizing they'd behave. So I would even say, like, you could be attracted to the fantasy of children, but when you actually see a real child, you're like, well, I'm you might not be attracted to real children at all.
Perfectly legitimate. Okay. Or at least, that's the purpose of a fantasy, is that, we get to add all the bells and whistles and whatever.
And control. You get to control, make them do what you...
Yeah, again, you're thinking like a non-fetishist. There are people who want to get controlled. So
those are the most controlling people of all. In my experience, no one's more controlling than a fucking bottom in the BDSM community. Jesus.
No, it's you're again stealing. You're falling on something that I'd say to clients all the time, is that it's only an illusion that the top is in control.
Yes,
a good top just figures out what the bottom wants and provides it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's an act. That is absolutely true. But again, for recognizing the range of, what people want to do, there's what you want to do to someone and, not reality. That's not
right. Okay. So would you call someone a pedophile who masturbates thinking about children, but has no interest in... I guess you're gonna say in one, it depends on the question. I don't know. What are you going to say? Would you call someone a pedophile who only fantasizes about children but has no real world attraction to children?
I don't think we're drawing the line in the same place. Okay. If the majority of their fantasies were about children, yep, I'd call them a pedophile. But when you say not in the real world, they can be having fantasies about children in the real world. Just not, plans to,
What if when they interact with children, they feel no attraction to any child in any real world situation? Would we still call them... Like, I guess what I'm getting at can pedophilia be completely only in your mind and even disconnected from your thoughts about your surroundings?
The only situation I can imagine that in would be if they have an erotic preference pattern that involves something very specific, in which the persons they're interacting with are children, but they're fantasizing about a situation that can't exist in the real world.
Okay. So it's so rare that the question doesn't make sense. Okay. Okay.
I just can't say that I've run into...
Okay.
For example, if you have a sexual fantasy about, some hot interaction with, a beautiful adult, but the actual adult is really stupid and is not going to behave the way you want them to. Mm-hmm. Well, are you attracted to that person or not?
Yeah. It's a good question. I'm glad I asked. Okay. Next question. Just to clarify, you're saying predominant attraction, meaning you prefer this age group over all other age groups.
Yes. The way we do it in science usually is more to, typical reproductive age adults. So if you prefer the children more than, 18 to 35,
Gotcha.
that's pedophilia.
Okay.
Now, as I say, we use that in science because if I want to compare a group of pedophiles to a control group, I need a cutoff somewhere to
And
make
that's
sure that my groups are
right.
uniform. And
Right.
that's, the most logical uniform. But that doesn't mean, if a person comes in 1/3 attracted to children and 2/3 to adults, I could understand why a person would come into therapy saying, Doc, this is driving me nuts, or Doc, I'm really uncomfortable. I can't say that's a non-issue, even though technically I wouldn't have classified him in my pedophile group in a research study.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my best comparison for that is you don't have to, fit the technical definition of depression to be sad enough to want to talk it out with a therapist.
Sure. Right. That's a more practical.
Right. So there's right. What can I, and then,
yeah.
It becomes complicated. All right. Now, what if they can only see the therapist if insurance pays for it, and insurance will only pay for it if it fits?
Then we move the line into so
and
that
we're
they
off to the
fall
races.
right. And then,
but in this one, we have a social,
yeah.
and this one we have a social interest. Would society want any pedophile to be able to come in for therapy if they're asking for it? Who are we benefiting by blocking this pedophile with no money or health insurance?
Nobody.
If anything, we're just
the self-righteous people. We're benefiting the self-righteous people. The most
I'm not even sure we're benefiting them. They,
no,
they might feel good, but I don't know if that's
well, that's all they want, right?
Okay. That's what they want, and they get it, but I don't know if that actually does them
any real
good.
Probably not. Okay. Do you have a through your journeys, have you come to a understanding of the typical adult sexuality breakdown of how interested is a normal person in 18 to 35, 11 to 14, 14 to 18, 0 to 11, 35 to 50, and every age group? Do you have a picture of the average bell curve of where fleeting thoughts end and intense interest begins that you could paint for us? Okay, let me give you some context. This I should tell you this. I get in arguments. So I'm working on a video about grooming in online spaces, and how grooming is defined is part of what I'm talking about. And so you have incidents like yesterday, someone got called a pedophile and a groomer because he was 18 and sexting with a 15-year-old.
Nonsense.
Right. And so I and many other people, and including a streamer friend of mine who's very powerful, he was able to basically reverse the narrative and say, like, no, this is nonsense, like, and kind of saved this guy's reputation. But many people are not so lucky. Many people have fallen. There was a 19-year-old who asked a 17-year-old for a nude and took like a 6-month break after these allegations were made. So the standard, I know the standard of like who is a predator is super fucking whacked. So I've been going on live streams, and I'll say like that. And then there's another story of like this guy had sex with a 16-year-old at a party when he was I think he was like 20 or 21 or something. I don't remember. I think the age of consent in the state was 18, but he had sex with a 16-year-old. And I said, listen, I view this.
There's also usually a clause
Romeo and Juliet
close
clause,
in
right.
age.
Yeah.
Or the close in age.
Yeah. So my argument has been, listen, we online social media platforms, especially Discord, are mixing adults and kids. And especially this game, Super Smash Brothers, I'm a big fan. But people will go to tournaments and stay in hotels together and stay in houses together and pro gamer, like basically just all ages mixing together from like 14 to 25. And then yes, stuff happens. Sometimes they have sex. And so what I say, I've been called a pedophile for this take, is I'm saying, listen, telling this fiction that the average 21-year-old male has zero interest in having sex with a 16-year-old as though they're like a 6-year-old is not going to help anything. If you really want to prevent these things from happening, we have to look at it from a systemic perspective and start preventing the situations where they're in a pool naked and drunk together in the first place. The same reason you don't let a 13-year-old and an 18-year-old have a sleepover together. Not because you're afraid the 18-year-old is some like deviant weirdo pedophile predator, but because most even normal people, if you remove enough of their inhibitions through the situation, will do things that
I don't think any of those situations has anything to do with adults, children, pedophilia, or saving anyone else. All of those are opportunities for the speaker to demonstrate their moral superiority to the others. This is just the issue of the moment that was right in front of them that they had the opportunity to use. If it wasn't that, it was going to be something else.
Okay, and in this case, I might agree with you, but I would like you to sort of walk us through is an 18-year-old who, so that's another thing that I think ever since I learned about the Holocaust, this has been something I kind of apply to all situations of like, if you put someone in a strange enough situation, they will do things that you wouldn't think a normal person would do. And especially about sex of like, people and I have been in sexual situations I didn't think I would be in, but because you're
Those
led
are some of my favorites.
right, and then that's some of them. That's
I
some
can't
of your
believe I
favorite.
got invited.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing something. You're like, holy shit! I never thought I would do anything like this. But there's always some person who's trying to talk you into it, or who's enabling it. Like that's part of sex is enabling people to do things they feel too inhibited to do. And there's a plus side to it, and then it can also go wrong. So. So I'm always I'm always on the ropes in these debates saying like, no, like it's accepted in psychology and all sex researchers would say that if you want to have sex with a 16-year-old, or can be talked into having sex with a 16-year-old, that doesn't mean you're a fucking child predator.
Yeah, it's the for circumstances like that, probably the most useful definition is the biological one. What did we evolve for?
Fucking and bashing each other's heads in with rocks.
Attraction to 16-year-olds would have added to the number of children we'd have?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty close to the definition of natural we're ever going to get.
Right.
We evolved to be attracted to potential reproductive opportunities. Okay. So the only things that need any explanation are sexual attractions that are not connected to reproduction. That's what makes homosexuality. Right. Wait a second. That's violating our evolution rule. But
right.
Because it didn't die out, something's going on that we're not understanding. So that's what makes it a question.
Yeah.
Sexual attraction to children, same thing. That would decrease reproductive fitness. It's still here. So what? We have a mystery to solve.
Right. You're saying
a 16-year-olds, no mystery to solve. They can get pregnant. It would carry on.
Yeah.
I do have to add, however, that we are at a relatively unusual part of history, which didn't factor in during evolution. The age of puberty
has moved.
And it's an open question, at least to me. We are accustomed to people talking about puberty right now being particularly low. It is 9 and 10 years old. Even when I was a kid, it was 10, 11. Now it's 9, 10.
Okay.
But people are often talking to early 1900s where it was mid-teens. But it seems that era was the unusual one because of the early urbanization and pollution and so on. And actually the 10, 11 is normal. Closer to, it is what we evolved for. And it was the 15 and 16-year-old puberty. That was the blip.
Okay. Can I ask you some societal boundaries questions then? I'm interested in finding a way to say, you shouldn't have sex with a 14-year-old if you're. So I'm turning 37 tomorrow. So I don't think I should have sex with a 14-year-old.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. But that doesn't mean I would never want to, or could never be in a situation where I would have a fleeting thought or a non-fleeting thought or whatever. It just me wanting to do something doesn't mean I think it's right. And I don't think we have much of a language for that, especially around sex. We think that if you say you're interested in something or acknowledge, you're making descriptive statements about how things are. If you're saying we may have evolved to want to have sex with 11-year-olds, but that doesn't mean that we should do
No,
it.
that I'm ruling out. Again, it's the developmental.
Okay.
Right. Have they yet developed breast and curvy? You know, it's not the number. It's when the character demonstrates the characteristics suggesting that they could be a potential co-parent.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess mentally we are able to be co-parents after we're able to give birth.
It's a little more complicated.
Well, if you're saying that not, if you're
don't give viable, you know, the pregnancies from pubescent kids, as I say, they're not going to facilitate reproduction much. Those usually those aren't going to give you.
That's a liability. That makes things. Okay, I see. That hurts the species. Okay, so mid-teens. What do you think the age of consent should be?
That assumes that there's a single factor by which to decide, and there isn't. There are competing factors. Not everybody is going to be making good decisions at the same age. You know, does a smart kid who know what's going on, who came from, you know, liberal parents, you know, they might be able to handle it and they have background and supports. But somebody who's doing it out of desperation, trying to move out of their house and so on, and there are kids who are just naive or desperate to feel liked.
Okay, let's back up. Do you think there should be an age of consent? Not as the sole determining factor of whether statutory rape has occurred, but as a factor. Do you think there should be
the competing part is, of course, we have to treat it fairly, and I don't think we're going to be giving any, you know, sex tests or IQ tests like driving tests before anybody can have sex. So I can't think of a social system, another workable social system, acknowledging that it's going to be suboptimal.
Okay. So let's acknowledge that the perfect system would be not right now is not feasible to develop and implement. So given our current system and current understanding, our current understanding, not your current understanding, but society's current understanding, do you think there should be an age of consent?
Yeah, I can't think of a
better alternative for right now.
To protect the kids from the whatever fraction of people who will manipulate the younger.
And what do you think that age of consent should be, given the practical limitations that you've just described? If somebody gave you a ballot and you get to choose the age of consent across the entire country, what bubble would you fill in?
I can't say that there's any solid data to suggest differing from 18.
Okay.
But at the same time, acknowledging that that's pretty arbitrary and it's a compromise among, you know, legitimate conflicting.
There's a box
interests.
you can write in whatever you want in the box next to it. But if you had to fill in a bubble, you would.
I want the right answer. You know, and the right answer is that.
I'm saying the right answer. Given
the right answer.
Yeah, we don't have the right answer. But given what you do have, I mean, you can be a conscientious objector. I'm just asking you, if you had to fill in a bubble, what would it be? You want to answer the question?
I wouldn't feel.
I'm not asking how you feel about it.
I reflexively, you know, ignore my feelings in making a decision. That kind of a objective decision. But as I say, I don't have trouble with 18, but with the caveat that, you know, close age mates, there's really little evidence of harm going along with that. So barring dramatic evidence for something different, again, I'm content to stick with it.
Okay.
But I guess what I'm saying is that I acknowledge that it's imperfect, but any other choice is also perhaps more imperfect. So
Okay, well, I think it should be 19. Pedo. No, I'm just kidding. I think 18 is. I think 17 is what I think. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you. I'm for the boundaries purposes. So, okay, so we have different definitions of pedophilia now. We have the scientific definition, and we have the lay people's definition. And the lay person's definition seems to be
Whatever they needed to be to insult you.
yeah. Do you think that we should try to educate, no, not educate, instill lay people with the scientific definition? Or do you think that do you think we should try to have a colloquial definition that's, if you're interested in people under 15, 14, 13, or do you think we should really push for prepubescent and then, being attracted to a minor or whatever? I guess should we try to instill in lay people the idea of differing between what is probably a normal and common, being willing to have sex with a 15 or 16-year-old, versus unusual 5 and 6-year-old, or should we kind of allow the blanket definition?
Oh no, absolutely. I think we should use the terms in their very specific technical way. All the rest is really just spreading history on a rumor mongering. It really serves no purpose other than as I said that virtue signaling. Broadening it, doesn't explain the research. It doesn't help us protect our children, and if anything else, it's going to divert resources away from genuine protection.
What do you think about the term map?
Not a fan. To me, it dilutes really who we're talking about. We're not talking about attraction to minors. Usually, a minor is under 18. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about under 8. We're talking, for a genuine pedophile, again, we're talking prepubescent and pubescent, up to 14-ish. So the phrase, I appreciate that, they're trying to come up with something that's a bit of a euphemism, but to me, that's too broad. We're not talking about minors.
Yeah, I have some messaging problems with that too, where it feels like they're trying to. It does feel like an attempt to normalize pedophilia.
I have no idea what the word normalize is.
I knew that was going to piss you off.
It not piss me off. It has no meaning. It's
well, I think in this case it means
if there's one thing that mental health professionals can agree on, it's we don't know what normal is, but somehow everybody knows what normalizing is.
I think in this case it means, if you're taking a bell curve and you're saying pedophiles are this little fraction of a percent, it's an attempt to say, what if we gave ourselves a new name that made it so we're this much of a percent?
No, normal is just being normalize is just being used as a antonym for I'm not allowed to have my moral judgmentalism.
Okay, but you understand that using the term maps makes the group much bigger. Right? You concede that?
It makes the number of people who fit the definition bigger, well, but I can't say that there's anybody who joined the group. Oh, okay, now they're up to my age group. So.
No, I'm just saying that by using a more expansive definition, you're almost definitionally normalizing.
They're diluting how atypical their sexual interest patterns are.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, and I think that's a fair use of. See, I think a charitable reading of the word normalize in this case would be that they are trying to dilute how atypical we think they are by using a net that catches more people in it and saying, see, we're just part of the net.
That reasoning is why I don't like the term.
You really hate these people.
But I don't hate them.
Yeah.
I don't know what you must mean that as a joke. I just dislike the term.
No, these self-righteous people.
Oh,
those people, the people who use the word normalize. Those I didn't mean maps. No, I know you don't. I know you don't.
Oh, no, I dislike the behavior. It doesn't get anyone anywhere, but at the same time, the people who are doing it, these are not happy people. Expressing joy. They're not. These are not contented, settled.
I think they have their reasons for doing what they're doing, and I think they should be listened to.
Yeah, and they're unhealthy.
Okay, but so's being a fucking pedophile.
Uh, well, now we have to quibble over what does it
No, see,
mean
but
to be healthy.
what I'm saying is the way you feel about self-righteous people is the way these people feel about pedophiles.
No.
So when I say
I have no idea how they feel about pedophiles. I just know that they're being used as an example to justify their
yeah,
virtue signaling. And if it weren't this, it would
but
be something else. So I don't think it has anything to do with
aren't you and I virtue signaling to each other? Are we having a bit of a circle jerk about these self-righteous
No,
assholes? No,
no.
you don't
I'm
think so?
sharing thoughts that I have, the evidence behind it, and if somebody likes it, take it. If they don't like it, they don't have to. And I'm saying it despite the knowledge of how many people will dislike it.
I think we're guilty, James. I think we're sick
Of
the thing that we hate.
I don't get it.
Virtue signaling. We're just signaling different virtues. Saying you hate virtue signaling is virtue signaling. It's just signaling a different virtue. Your virtue you're signaling is it.
No.
Okay.
Virtue signaling would say what it is that I'm doing. I'm not the center of anything I said. What I said is this group does that group does the other thing. It's what I like, what I don't like, according to you ask it. But
I think we're both the center of what we're saying. I think we're both flamboyant personalities.
Both of those observations I would endorse. I don't see a causal relationship between them.
Okay.
I think it's my natural extroversion that enables me to address controversial issues, and just, growing up gay, just kind of gave me the skin to be able to tolerate, I don't give two shits what anybody thinks of me. Here are the facts.
I don't believe you.
What would convince you?
Nothing.
Well then.
We should move on. Okay. I was getting to the practical stuff, setting boundaries, age of consent. Yeah, thought crime. The idea that thinking about something or acknowledging that you're thinking about something is an endorsement of it. That's very troubling to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's having a sexual fantasy about somebody other than your monogamous partner isn't cheating.
Yeah. What do you think about child pornography? What do you think about simulated child pornography?
That now is the real issue. The problem of child pornography is the victimization of the subject of
that's
it.
one
But
problem.
If it's a cartoon, a drawing, a narrative, a latex doll, a sex robot, there's no child. No child, no victim. No evidence of harm.
Can I present some counter arguments?
Of course.
Do you think it's possible that indulging in fantasies can increase their prevalence or strength, especially if the way you're indulging in them is in itself, the medium somehow is addictive? Like, how someone in my subreddit, or not my subreddit, my Discord was saying, is you don't get addicted to porn, you get addicted to searching for porn. And so if you just had like a magazine, you'd be...
Neither one is true. You don't get addicted to it at all.
Well, will you just hear me out, and then you can rip it apart when I'm done. I think they made a good point that you could be gratified by a magazine filled with pictures of whoever, but the searching aspect and typing and clicking and scrolling and that algorithmically delivered content has a way of burrowing into your brain more than like a book or magazine. So taking that into consideration, do you think it's possible that even you think it's possible that there's a way to satisfy the pedophilic urges of sexual urges of pedophiles that might actually increase the increase their pedophilia?
No, absolutely no evidence for any of that. If the human brain worked according to masturbatory fantasies, being able to reshape our sexual interest patterns, then conversion therapy would have worked in the first place.
I think that's a blunt argument. I'm asking if it's, you don't think it's possible ever that masturbating to something can increase your interest in it? I mean, even finding out that there's other people who are interested in the same thing. I think there's certain fantasies I have that I wouldn't even know I had a word for them.
That's not the full question. It's not, is it possible? I
That
can
is my-
imagine.
That is my full question, James.
You're asking then you're asking the wrong question.
Well, will you answer it anyway?
You're asking, is it possible for 100 years of looking forward to it, all demonstrating failure, but it's still to be true?
Yes.
That's what you're asking.
Yes. Is that possible?
It's possible in the way that the entire world is artificial and a hallucination of me while I'm sleeping. It's technically possible.
It's more possible than that. You don't think that me looking
to suggest that? That's all any science can ever do. Well, it's always possible that some future finding will change what we know, but despite, as I say, a century of looking for it.
So if I came to you as a patient and I said, "Hey, I think watching gay porn has made me I've been exploring my gayness by watching gay porn, and it's made me gayer. The more gay porn I watch, the gayer I feel. When I lay off of it, I don't think about other men the same way, but when I start watching this gay porn, the more I watch, the more I notice myself checking out men in the locker room. Now, I understand you might say, like, well, you don't know that that's causing it, but you're saying there's no part of you that would be like, I don't know, maybe it is.
What's going on is not a change in sexual interest pattern. It's a change in inhibition. It's a change in willingness to be introverted versus extroverted. It often reflects a person's novelty seeking more than anything else. An enormous amount of the time that people spend surfing isn't the sex, it's procrastination.
Okay. I understand you can come up with other explanations. My question is, okay,
you're saying give you the explanations that are consistent with the existing research.
The sexual interest pattern. I know you did your MRI scans.
Yep.
You're saying that you believe, or that you know, that sexual interest patterns are determined genetically.
No. Genetic is not a synonym for innate, immutable, and inborn. There's no evidence to suggest that there is a gene for pedophilia, which is different from saying that there's no biological, whatever happened to maternal stress while the kid was developing in the womb.
Okay,
it's biological and innate, but there's not a gene for it.
Innate meaning environmental up to a certain age.
No, innate meaning inborn.
Well, you just said stress in the womb. Like, there's genetics and there's environment. What else is there, James?
There's
nothing.
I'm not sure exactly where you're going. For example,
why do you have to know where I'm going?
To answer your question.
Is there anything to affect my sexual makeup beyond genetics plus environment?
The interaction between them is a separate quantity.
Okay. My genetics, my environment, and the interaction between them.
You're using the word environment differently from how the relevant scientists do.
I didn't say...
There's social environment and there's biological environment of the soup of the uterus in which you were swimming.
There's
biological.
Okay. So, uterus soup? We'll just label it separately. Because I also mean environment. I also mean like preschool and stuff. So, sexual pattern, sexual attraction patterns or interest patterns. Soup? Genes? Environment or no? Let's talk about not pedophilia, but just sexual orientation in general. Sexual interest patterns, period. You're saying they are not affected by anything that happens to you after you come out of that vagina.
In men, there's no evidence of such an influence. In women, there appears to be much more malleability.
Of course. Okay. Okay. No evidence. That means that this is what you believe. You believe that your sexual interest pattern is determined uh, by the time you were born. That's what it is.
I can't go from that quickly from what the evidence is to what I believe. What I believe is what the evidence is. Should the evidence change, my belief will change. These aren't,
Well,
principles.
okay, but here's the thing. A second ago, you were saying it's possible in the same way that it's possible that that is all hallucination and I'm lying in bed. That is very unlikely. So I'm asking you to put some weight to, because when I was saying it's possible, you were making fun of me. You were cutting me down. And now I'm saying, so this is what you believe, and you're saying, well, that's just what the current thinking is, and who knows. So so to bring it back to simulated child porn, even if it's just if you're only if you get what I'm saying, if your certainty level is just at, well, this is what the current thinking is, but who knows, other evidence could come out, we don't fully understand this, then there's all kinds of hypothetical downsides to simulated child porn beyond just that whether there's a victim or not. If your confidence level is at it's basically like saying the earth is flat and everybody's lying to you, then I get why you're having such a strong stance. So which is it? Do you believe that our sexual makeup is already determined by the time we're born, to the point where saying it might not be is like saying, there might be an elephant that follows me around all the time and I'll just never see it? Or do you think that maybe we'll find out someday that our sexual interest patterns are changed after birth?
It doesn't divide quite like that. Whether something, how much weight I want to put on something and how possible it is to change in the future doesn't come only from whether there exists any research, but whether we have been looking for such things and failing to find it.
And
And
have
looking
we?
for social things that would have changed a person's a male sexual orientation. Yes, people have been looking for such a thing for a century, haven't found one. Every attempt, again, for men, every attempt for every mechanism, nothing has made any difference. People can be helped to change what behaviors they express versus suppress, but their attraction patterns, it's theoretically possible, but I certainly, wouldn't make any policy based on it. But I don't want to automatically sign on to any statement about sexual orientation, because that now all of a sudden is including women for whom there's a different story. So, nope, there were some assumptions built into the question that I couldn't sign on to so fast.
Okay. When you say we've been looking for 100 years but haven't found any, that sounds like a pretty strong vote of confidence.
It's as strong as we can get, given, something where we can't exactly randomly assign people to groups and run an
But but
experiment.
okay, but there's all kinds of shit we've been trying to do for 100 years that we couldn't do, and then we can.
Yeah,
So I
that's why I say it's technically theoretically possible, but
okay, I don't agree with you.
which part?
I think that our sexual interest patterns are influenced by events after birth.
What's the evidence?
I think people who are trying to make gay people straight are just not very good at it. Or
As I
people who are
say,
trying to make straight people gay. I don't
what's
know.
the
I still I have a more like situational understanding, or the way I think of sexual orientation is more kind of fluid, I guess. Like I think that jail makes you gayer. You do more gay shit in jail than you would outside of jail.
yeah,
Like people
because you're
who
desperate. It hasn't changed your preference. They don't stay gay after jail.
is that true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Are you sure?
I
Oh, I
didn't
know you're
come
the
from the
expert. I don't.
forensic.
No, I know. I'm asking you. I'm asking you if that's really true. If no people
Yeah,
who no
they
people who
jerk
go.
each other off because they're the only people there. There are no women.
Yeah, I guess I view the whole planet as like a jail. So I think your sexual behavior, including your sexual thoughts and fantasies, are and partly determined by your environment. Jail is an extreme example, but I think that you know, you're if you spend a lot of time around like fat women, I think you're more likely to develop a sexual interest in fat women.
Again, if anybody can show any evidence for that, I'm all ears.
I don't have any evidence. I just think this.
As I say, if anybody has any evidence, I'm all ears. But other than that, it's anybody can guess anything they want, but there's no evidence for it.
Yeah, but the thing is, so it doesn't. But the thing is, it doesn't matter until you're talking about turning people into child molesters.
There's also no evidence to suggest that relatively minor characteristics like body weight, figure into a sexual orientation in the same way that age and sex do, other than extremes. The big fetish is feederism. Not only do they like very, very fat partners, they like, feeding their partners as part of the sex.
Yeah. So
other than that, I'm not aware of there being a paraphilia really about, fat in just a...
Well, yeah, but you said you could be gay. You could
partners.
Be gay because you're a sadomasochist. You could be a pedophile. There's all kinds of reasons you could
engage in the behaviors, but without it having the same motivation as other people who engage in the same behavior.
But no
the
two
aspect
people
that they find attractive.
But no two people truly have the same motivation. We're just grouping people together. No two people are gay in the same way for the same reasons. And for you to say that their reasons are entirely divorced from their experience just seems not true to me.
Again, all I can tell you is what the evidence is, and I have yet to see any evidence to suggest that there's, that each people are individual in some meaningful way, other than the fact that, well, all the humans look different. Therefore, you can't tell that this is a human by look. That's not how it works. If we did, for example, a cluster analysis of whatever features, we would have, one very obvious cluster. That doesn't mean that everybody is identical.
Cluster, not identical. Yeah, we're grouping people together, but you could also zoom in on the cluster and find different clusters within the cluster, right? Tits and ass, right? Like there's tits man. You're a tits man or an ass man. People ask that all the time. Both people are straight, but they're straight for different reasons.
Actually, the research suggests it's the hip to waist ratio. It's the curvy of it, and just tits versus ass are different ways to produce that curviness.
Okay, so you don't believe it that in the self-reporting of men who say that they're more interested
in... You keep asking believe. I don't believe in belief. I can tell you what the evidence is. That's all anybody can do. Where it's going to go, how it's going to change, I don't know. That's what makes me open-minded. That's how one stays open-minded and discovers that, oh, now the literature in this is changing, the evidence is changing, so my beliefs change. The beliefs are not what's important. The evidence is.
Okay. My perception is that there is a knowledge gap around what makes people gay and what makes people straight. I don't think we know. I think there's evidence to point to some answers, but I don't think we have the answer. So I'm trying to fill in based on thinking coming at it from a few different ways. One is my own experience. Another is just sort of logic, kind of puzzle solving, just kind of taking the pieces that we do have and seeing if I can come up with something that makes sense to me. And then the other thing is I guess leaving a space where I accept that we don't know. Oh, and then another thing is maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe people aren't gay or straight. Like maybe that's just, maybe the question is just wrong, and so we can find answers to the question that add up to
You're
something.
skipping a part in trying to answer the question.
Okay.
Check to see if anybody else in the past 100 years has had the same hypothesis and checked. You
Okay.
either have to come up with some idea that
Well,
no
that's why
other
I'm
scientists
yeah, that's
spending
why I'm
no
asking
other.
you. Is you obviously know much more about this than I do, so I figure you'd be a good person to talk to about this, right?
Yes,
You'd be
but
able to answer if someone's checked in the past 100 years.
you're not asking me about them. You're asking me if you're correct.
I think I'm more.
Are you
No,
asking me for validation? Is that what you're hoping?
no, 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 no. I don't think so. I'm asking you. This is all an offshoot of the simulated child porn question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you to validate the concerns of people who are against simulated child porn because of your own blind spots and the blind spots of science in general about this topic.
If
And
that were
making the
true, we would never be able to make any conclusion. Science will never be finished. There will always be a blind spot. There will always be the potential for something to change.
wait, I didn't say you can't make a conclusion. I just asked you to acknowledge that you're working with incomplete information. Wait, I'm on your side, James. I'm your buddy. Okay? I agree that simulated child porn may be beneficial and should be legal. But to say that there's no
I
counter
have no idea
argument,
if it's beneficial.
well, if it's beneficial if people like it and it's not harmful. That's what I meant.
I, I, my logic is very simple. You don't ban things without evidence that it's harmful. There's no evidence that it's harmful. Don't ban it. You want to
Great.
run a study that might
That's
find a
fine.
different conclusion? Okay.
That's fine. I'm not I'm not arguing that we should ban it. I'm asking you if you are willing to make the concession, and so far you're not, that within this gap of what makes people gay or straight or pedophiles or whatever, where we don't know, if it's possible that things that happen to you after you are born could influence your sexual interest patterns. And you're saying basically you're mocking me for even asking.
I'm saying there's no evidence for it, despite.
That is different from saying it's almost certainly not. So if we're talking about something like turning people into pedophiles, which would be bad, I think.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to acknowledge that blind spot. More than it makes like should like it would be bad if everybody was gay. Do you think that's true? Would it be a bad outcome if gay porn, if making gay porn legal made everybody gay? Do you think that would be a bad outcome or good outcome or neutral?
Again, you're asking me to pretend the past 100 year of science doesn't exist.
I'm asking you a hypothetical question.
Yeah, that everything we know about human sexuality were untrue.
Yes, in this hypothetical, everything we know about human sexuality is untrue. Will you engage with the question, sir?
That's not how court works.
That's how this court works. That's how the kangaroo court works. If you could push a button to make everyone on Earth gay,
No. It's the word bad.
if you could push a button to make everyone on Earth gay, would you push it?
Depends on how cute I would be relative to the ones that I want.
You would be the cutest.
Well, then yes, of course. Now, your question hinges on the judgmentalism surrounding the word bad. There's bad in the evolutionary sense. Would it have evolved this way? Oh, okay. If we're going to do away with evolution too, well, okay, let's assume that Jesus was right. And now ask the scientists.
Okay. You want to ask me a hypothetical? Look, the problem
this
is,
isn't a
you know what the problem with you is?
Counter
you know what your
existing evidence.
You know what your problem is?
I don't know how you're going to keep it short, but go ahead.
You're all about these thought experiments and thinking things through, no matter how unpleasant or scary or whatever. But then you won't go through this one, which gives your enemies a leg to stand on. I'm saying, like, well, like, I'm asking you if you'll entertain a hypothetical in which some of the pushback that you get and that I get makes sense, and you're like, no. You won't even talk it through. You find a way to derail every hypothetical question I ask you by saying it's not real. Well, yeah, it's a fucking hypothetical. I know it's not real. That's the point of the question. It's not real. But it could be. So I'm asking you a hypothetical question.
No, it couldn't be.
Your 100 years shit doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. You keep trotting out this century of blah, blah, blah. A century of stupid people trying to solve a complex problem that they're ill-equipped to solve for reasons they probably shouldn't be engaging with it in the first place is not evidence that it's impossible. It's just evidence that, like, stupid people are not good at solving problems. Smart people aren't even good at solving problems. So take your 100 years and just set it aside. And I want you to just engage with the hypothetical that, can you see how, if there is a blind spot in what changes our sexual interest patterns, and we don't have the full picture, do you see how it is concerning? It's even concerning to me, and I'm not saying I would ban it because of my concern. It's concerning to people of, like, well, what if we make people into pedophiles by showing them this material? Even if there's no evidence of that, do you see how that's just a concerning idea?
No. If we allowed that, we still have witches. You cannot lower the bar for scientific evidence for one question and say, well, because it's just for that question. If we are able to ignore...
Okay, you don't need scientific evidence to answer a hypothetical.
You said, what if evolution doesn't work? What if we're all gay? Well, that means evolution is wrong.
Yes, that could be part of your answer. That's fine. It'd be like if you asked, okay, imagine you were like,
it shows why no answer matters.
No, you're reacting to the climate around this. I created a safe space for you, and I think you should appreciate that a little bit more than you do. You're acting like you're surrounded by people trying to burn you at the stake, and you're not. You're safe. You're finally safe, James. You're safe here. It's a safe place.
I have no idea what signal I could have given that would suggest that I feel any more or less safe in any environment.
Well, that's the problem. I want you to take your shoes off. Okay. I want you to take your...
I'm pointing out that my shoes are off. It's your perception of me that might be off.
It could be. Could be. But I don't think so. I still think my perception of you is pretty good. Like, it would be like if you asked me, if you're like, Max, what would you do if you had a third arm? And I'm like, I don't. It's like, but what if? You're saying you're not willing to engage in
and you don't see a difference between that being the Rathskellian conversation over beer rather than a serious conversation with an expert on a topic.
Okay, you find
if we're willing to imagine, what if evolution is wrong? No answer is meaningful.
Does evolution?
There is no.
Okay, that's a.
Wrong, that is
okay. All right, motherfucker. That is a non-serious implication you're making. It is unserious. It is unserious and unscientific of you to imply that if our sexual interest patterns can be changed after birth, that implies evolution is wrong. No, that's not true. You're just trotting that out to try to make me look stupid. But that's not relevant to what we're talking about. What would have to be different for sexual interest patterns to be changed after birth? The only thing you've said so far that would have to be different from our current reality is that 100 years of idiots trying to make gay people straight would have to be wrong. And you know what? That is entirely possible. So is there anything else in your big bag of counter examples to try to derail my perfectly reasonable question?
You do know how old evolution is, yes?
Evolution is very old.
I mean, the
5
actual,
billion years old.
not evolution itself, the theory of.
I think it's 170
It's over 100
years old. Yeah.
If evolution is wrong, everything we know about modern science and biology
does
is
evolution
wrong.
have to be wrong in my hypothetical question about sexual interest patterns? Why?
The part that got me onto the evolution was the other hypothetical. What if everybody is gay, turning everybody is gay?
I said if you had a button that could push, if you had a button that you could push to make everybody gay, that does not make evolution wrong. It's a new device that I just invented that it shoots a beam with a heretofore unknown technology into everyone's brain and makes them gay. That doesn't make evolution wrong. Even in that hypothetical, evolution isn't wrong. And you're not answering my question. My question is, what else
would... If you perceive that I as not answering your question, then I don't have an answer for your question.
Well, can I ask it again?
Okay.
In my hypothetical, where this zany world, where your sexual interest patterns can be changed after birth, what else would have to be changed or not true? You're saying evolution, but I don't believe that. Why would that mean evolution is wrong? And then the other thing you said would have to be changed and not true is that 100 years of people trying to get control over this, it would mean they have failed. And I believe that maybe they just have failed. It might not even be something you can control. Just because it's possible, just because things can influence your sexuality, sexual interest patterns after birth, that doesn't mean that they can be influenced in a predictable and controllable way. It just means it might happen. So in the hypothetical, what is so different about this hypothetical world that you can't even answer my goddamn question?
It's not can't.
Won't.
It's no. I'm saying there's no meaningful answer. Once you change how the system works, no prediction is relevant.
My question is a meta question about what would be changed in the system in my hypothetical. That's a tautological. No, wait, no. That's a tautological argument because you're saying the system already works in this way, but there's a gap in our knowledge of how the system works. So I'm saying, what if we keep our knowledge? But what if there's another part?
There is always a gap. That's
so how am I changing how the system works? Your answer to the question can't be that you just know gay people are gay from birth. You don't know that. You don't actually know that.
No. What I know is the most parsimonious explanation for the body of evidence that's developed.
But there's always, even if it turns out that the body of evidence that we have is but 1% of the evidence that we will have in 200 years, there is always a most parsimonious explanation given any body of evidence. That doesn't preclude you from answering a hypothetical question where I say, if new evidence was introduced, what would you think of that? Or is it possible? Is it even possible that this is 1% and there's going to be another 90? Like with the theory of evolution, that seems extremely unlikely to me.
All of that I did say several times. If there's some new evidence, I'm happy to look at it.
Yeah, I know. But what you're not willing to do is answer either the question or the meta question about the question. And I think that it's not because it's an unserious scientific question, excuse you for that insinuation. And I don't think it's because it's a bad question. And I don't think it's because you think that the 100 years of trying to turn gay people straight was like a good effort. I think that you don't want to give ammo to your critics. This is the only question you've
If
been unwilling to answer. And it's the one answer. It's the one question that gives the most ammo to your critics.
if I ever considered my critics at all in any of my question
You
in
are not.
any of these issues,
You
it's
don't have to
news
be
to me.
Superman here. You
I
don't have to.
neither put forward nor withhold. Whatever I say
How
or
do you
don't say,
acknowledge
it is
no emotional or
independent and
psychological?
irrelevant.
How do you acknowledge no psychological or emotional vulnerability to an angry mob?
Pretty much just growing up gay. I've gotten used to it. It's second nature to me. It's meaningless to me. I mean, to me, these are words scrolling up on Twitter. They're meaningless. What I I got it.
I think you're very guarded. I think it's even worse than I thought. Shoes off, even still. You might as well be wearing combat boots. That's what I think.
I don't know what would convince you of otherwise. I don't know what would
I already
make
answered
me
that.
see it differently. I can only describe you my experience of it for whatever it's worth.
Well, you could go along with the thought experiment, but you don't want to do that.
It's an internally contradictory question. What if 2 and 2 were 7? Then what would a circle be?
If
Well,
two and
adopting
two were 7, a circle would probably be an oval.
true, not true words on a page that you just made up and had no meaning.
I don't know if it has
Right,
no
they're
meaning.
words you made up. All of a sudden, it has no meaning. Do I know you're right? Do I know you're wrong? I have no
Okay,
idea.
you know how I know. You know
My
how I know
conclusion
you're
has no meaning.
emotionally. You know how I know you're emotionally compromised, Spock. You know how I know? Because that question you just asked is nonsensical, and the question I'm asking you is not nonsensical. You could say that there's no evidence base for answering it, and that you're not comfortable. All you had to do, you know what? You could have gotten out of this easily. You could have just said, "There's no evidence base for that," and you know what? I really care about this issue, and I'm not comfortable saying something that could be taken out of context as me saying that, yeah, I think there's a genuine reason why people should be concerned about this. It's really important to me that we not conflate sexual shame with knowledge gaps and evidence bases, and we should just I'm just not comfortable answering the question because I think that harm could come from me answering the question, and I don't think it's a good enough question to merit an answer. To say, yeah, maybe we don't know 100% based on what we know. This is what I think, and I don't want to entertain a hypothetical where I that's just like based on shit I don't think. I think it would be irresponsible for me to answer. But no, instead you're like, I'm not going to answer your question because you're a fucking moron. And I can't that's not true
Which part?
that I'm a fucking moron.
That all to me sounds like a conversation you're having with yourself rather than me.
Okay. So what do you think about simulated child porn?
Harmless as best as we can tell.
As best as we can tell. Uh okay. Um let's talk about your detractors. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What do they say? What do they say about you?
They, as if this is a uniform group, they say typically whatever it is they need or want or can think of to say about me to discredit anybody listening to whatever evidence I present.
Is there any patterns?
Virtue signaling, attention seeking. A lot of people, with issues of their own that they haven't settled with, so they hold me as not exactly responsible before them, but they take me as a symbolic representative of whatever, of who might have victimized them. Extremists.
I think that okay. If you said there was a pattern, to what they say about you, it would imply some consensus, which you don't want to do. Okay, okay. Do you think I'm doing that to you? Do you think I'm doing this to you? Do you think I'm projecting my own undealt with psychological issues onto you in this conversation beyond what is inevitable?
I don't mean deep psychological issues, but you do seem to be trying to resolve something with a hope or expectation that I'll do something that I'm not doing.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's inarguable. I accept that you're not going to do it. Okay, let's do a little role switch. Can I ask you for some advice?
Sure.
Okay. Can I tell you about my project very briefly? I already told you basically, but very broad strokes.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm making a video called The Groomer Narrative. I think that's what I've settled on. And the idea is because social media mixes adults and children in these situations I told you about where they're likely to fuck or send each other dirty messages or whatever, I believe that we are engaging in moral policing, especially around the topic of pedophilia and grooming, as a way to sort of self-correct and make up for the failures of companies like Discord and Twitter to protect adults from kids. So basically, it's the creators and their fans saying, trying to fill in this gap of like, how do we handle the fact that any 13-year-old fan of mine could start a private video call with me whenever they want? And that's not like a normal situation. Like 20 years ago, that'd be unthinkable. But it's like now everybody's Michael Jackson. Everybody can have their 10-year-old fans over into their bedroom digitally whenever they want. So I believe that we are trying to make up for this by calling each other perverts, witch hunting, calling each other pedophiles, and stringing each other up and destroying each other's lives, rather than fixing the systemic issue of like, maybe my 13-year-old fans don't need to be able to start a Discord call with me in private whenever they want. What do you think of that as like it's just like a lens I'm trying to look at the situation through to say like,
same as before. I don't think that protecting the children is really the motivator. I think looking like we're protecting the children is the motivator.
Do you think
whether it's actually doing that and whether the people that we're hearing from, which are the loudest, are they representative of the mainstream?
Okay. If I were to draw a pie graph of somebody's motivation for calling me a pedophile, we both agree that virtue signaling, which I believe is driven by fear, you believe is driven by self-righteousness and an urge to like almost a sick pleasure. Are you saying that actual concern for children would take up 0% of the pie graph? Are you willing to give an inch?
I can't say that a person lacks it, but I can't say that the situation that in their reacting to their emotions, that it's really not about the kid. It's just,
I mean, even if it's 1%, it doesn't have to be about the kid, but do you think it's there at all? Can we connect on this at all? And that I want to listen to, acknowledge, and affirm whatever genuine concern about children. I have genuine concern about children, so maybe I'm just projecting my own concern onto the people who hate me. But can you acknowledge that there is a 1% sliver, diabetic grandma, pumpkin pie slice of concern for the children? Or are you saying it is literally absolutely absent? These people are just sociopathic, self-indulgent. They're children themselves. They're just assholes. That's your official diagnosis, is they're assholes.
I don't think it's possible to reduce any person or certainly group of people to having a single motivator, but it's not the one that really pushed them over to the limit and
sure,
turned
absolutely.
them into these extremists.
I agree. But do you think it's there at all?
Are
you willing to
I don't have any I
you
don't
have no
have
evidence?
any reason to, I don't have any. It's not what I'm watching for. It's not what's making their behavior the important behavior. You know, if desire for children were there without the virtue signaling, They could be doing something productive.
Well, that
So
might be
the
unproductive
important
people.
factor is the
Well,
virtue signaling,
okay.
not
Well,
the.
that's what my project is about. Here's my project. The goal of the project is to say, hey, what are some practical things we can do that I see from my perspective as somebody who is on these platforms and as somebody who is in this social media world. It's my job, and it's just trying to bring experts like you in from academic world and have the clash of the cold water of evidence and data with the the hot irons of emotion and self-righteousness, and then say, okay, what in this steam, what do we have left here? What can we agree on? What can we force these people to accept? And what can I, and as somebody who is not particularly prone to virtue signaling, and at least in the normal way, is can I, as somebody who's a suspected pedophile and child molester, I think it will be meaningful to people if I say, well, here are some suggestions of how I think we can all protect children better on the internet. Then and you're saying, well, they don't care about protecting children, so it's going to fall on deaf ears. They just care about killing you to make themselves feel better. That may largely be true, but if it's not totally true, I still want to try. So
You should be using a different strategy to rope in the virtue signalers so that they do get what they want or feel like they get what they want. So we can now use them to start sending the messages of what will protect children.
Okay, so
given that their motivator is the feeling of righteousness, invent an award that we can give them if only they would help, fundraiser, whatever useful purpose we can put them to. Use their motivator to get out of them productive behavior. They're not going to listen to the data. That's not what they care about. They care about how they look. Help them look the way they want to look if they do things our way.
That's too dishonest. I can't do that. I don't want to use. I don't want to use people.
What I just described is otherwise called government.
I know. I don't want to govern people. I'm an artist, not a politician. So I want to reach them.
As I said, my reflex is to start with where they are. Where they are is with a need to virtue signal. If I want their cooperation, their vote, their money, whatever, help them feel like they were virtuous so that I can get them to consider, engage in, vote for, donate.
I think you hate these people.
I have no emotion towards them at all. I just know how to interact with different kinds of people in different kinds of situations in order to, get the outcome that matches,
when I say hate, I mean I think you view them as subhuman.
No, I think actually I'm the odd one out. They are, much more common.
You view yourself as superhuman.
Just different.
Superman.
You don't take no for an answer. You seem to be pretty convinced of how you see me, and that's that. In fact, you've said several times about what you think is going on instead of in my head. But
this is a common criticism I get from my own fans, that I tell people what I think is going on in their heads or how they're feeling, and I will not accept their own self-reporting about what they're feeling or thinking. Do you think that's a problem?
Yes and no. If you were able to provide evidence to demonstrate, why your conclusion is more parsimonious than what I describe my perception of it to be, then that would be pretty reasonable.
I think I'm providing evidence.
That's how it. No, you're only just saying.
I am obviously reacting to things you're saying and your behavior. You just don't agree that the evidence points to what it points to. So what should I do if I'm in an interview or a discussion with somebody and I think something about them that they don't think about themselves? I ask them if they think it, or I say I think it, and they disagree. What should I do in this situation?
We're now in journalism. This is your field more than mine, but my instinct would be to just ask it as a question, accept yes or no as the answer, and then move on.
Do you think you hate these people who hate you?
No.
Okay. Do you have any other advice? I feel ethically bound to reject your first suggestion that I use people's motivation to virtue signal to for my own purposes. Do you have any other advice about the construct, like any type of thing you think I should read or watch or person I should talk to in like I want to talk to like people who like law enforcement who can help us distinguish between like what is actual like child abuse versus 19 and 17-year-olds sexting, like to help us
You
get
think that should be law enforcement rather than the courts?
I think law enforcement would give us a good picture of the kinds of situations. Like, so people will like comment on my videos, like I'm reporting you to the FBI. So I think it would be interesting to have an FBI agent to come in and say like, hey, here's the things that we get reports about. Here's the number of reports we get. Here's what's actually happening.
Yeah,
What?
no, it's people just use blanket threats like that. I can't
Yeah,
count
yeah.
the number of times. My usual my usual response, if I respond at all when somebody says they're reporting me to the FBI, is to remind them I'm in Canada. They're just making this up. They don't know how any of this works.
No.
So right. So if a child yells at me, what's the point? What, I'm going to engage the child in the
Why? I
logic of
guess
the
I
conversation?
am. I am. So is there any areas of research that you think I should be reading about or looking into in order to understand if my thesis makes sense or if the best ways to kind of paint the picture of just differentiating the lay people's understanding of pedophilia, real pedophilia, versus people who victimize as children, versus when are children not being victimized but we think they are. Just kind of filling it all out into a nicely rounded thing. I have to stream a few times a week to pay my bills, so I gotta. I have
I'm looking
spots to
for
talk to.
I'm looking for Mike Cito's textbook on my shelf. That would probably be the most thorough and straightforward. I'm not saying it, I'd show it to you, but the author is Michael Cito, Seto.
Okay, do you know him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, don't tell him about this conversation.
But yeah, for anybody interested, I think that'd be it's a fantastic source, very chock filled. He's a solid scientist. He followed me
Okay.
as editor of the journal Sexual Abuse.
Okay. Mike Cito. How do I spell that? Seto?
Yep.
Okay. What's the book called?
Oh, goodness. Pedophilia and sex offenders against children, something like that.
Okay. You have this like you seem like you're winding down. Is our conversation almost over?
I'm afraid so. I'm a little bit jet lagged, and I have
I understand.
a couple of legal cases which have been just fascinating, but I have to get back to them.
Okay. Do you want to go now, or do you want to answer one more question?
Oh, let's do one more.
Okay. Editor of Sex Abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us any broad strokes, clarity on misconceptions about sex abuse that you think the average person has?
I think the most relevant one is its overlap with pedophilia. If we could end on a factoid,
Yeah.
it would be specifically people are treating, as we were saying before, pedophilia as a synonym for sex abuse. But really, the stranger danger is one of the things that society really needs to get over. The majority, the large majority of childhood sexual abuse happens inside the family, not from strangers. the situations, if we to make the biggest dent in the reduction in sex abuse, it's to handle what pathologies and what harms are going on inside families. These watching out for the dangerous others, they exist, that shouldn't stop, but that's not the lion's share of these cases.
Does that
It's
translate into any practical advice that you would have, like broadly speaking, of like how to redirect that energy that or that effort?
the virtue signalers are after virtue signaling. They're looking for somebody to blame. That the danger is inside the house, they are not interested in that. That won't give them the opportunity to show how much better they are, because we're saying look inside instead of giving them an opportunity to blame others. So this will not help them. On a societal level, to me, it's another indication of the general social supports, through schools and other social services that families in general need. And the abuse happens, inside highly stressed and chaotic houses, that don't get mental health care or other care that they need. The better, that entire net works, the less abuse we would expect. So it's the looking for, the stereotypical evil guy out in the world. They exist, but that's not really where most of this problem is.
That's interesting. Also, there's probably something nice about the idea that you just, if you can keep your kids away from Jeffrey Epstein, then you don't have to look in the mirror or look in your family's mirror, or what other systems you're part of. You can just
yeah, and the situations they have, right? A parent is there's a drug problem, alcohol problem, stress problem. The one of the spouses is getting abused. Right, they're yucky, ugly kinds of situations, but that's where the problem is. That's where we have to go in order to fix it. The other stuff, as I say, as I've kept saying, it isn't really about reducing pedophilia. It's about showing me what a good, whatever advocate I want to look like. Well, with that smile on the face, all of a sudden you're looking like a young Riker.
Hey, yeah, he's got that grin.
I think it's the beard. The combination of the beard and the smirk did it.
The pained grin. I see what you're saying. Well, thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and I might
happy to do it. They're tough topics.
I know they are. I might email you my progress once this comes together, if you're interested.
Excellent. I would be curious.
All right, great. Well, then I'll talk to you later, and thank you so much again.
Very good. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye, James. Looks like we got a new mentor, folks. Looks like we got ourselves a mentor, baby. James was fantastic. I know, Haley. I know you were looking forward to this, so I'm glad it didn't disappoint. Tell him you learned something. Oh, I learned a lot. Riker versus Romulan. Good talk. I called him Spock. He called me Riker. Got each other pegged. Is James our dad now? I don't know. Maybe. Mr. Girl made a new best friend who will deny their friendship. I know. What is with all these men who love me who won't just admit that they love me? Destiny knows he loves me. The Clark Hunt, $5. Thanks for holding his feet to the fire. They were pretty cute feet, too. You can say what you will about the guy. He's got nice feet. I didn't expect to see feet this stream. Dr. Chad was awesome. Pegged, and... Oh, yeah, I use that word purposely. Jordan Peterson. I know, this guy should be the new Jordan Peterson. Man, I think that... I think people, if he started streaming, I think people would probably really like it. James Cantor is iconic. He really is. It's quite a personality. You're more like Barkley. I'm like Barkley in the episode where he knows everything. This was your most fascinating interview yet by far. Great work. Yeah, it got derailed for, only a third of it. I honestly thought he already did streaming. I don't think so. Maybe you can start the next convo with a nice long chat about your friendship. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start my next conversation with somebody I've never talked to before with a nice long chat about my friendship with that person. I might as well just cut straight to the chase. He was really sharp and had great broadcasting presence. He was very sharp. I think your absolute biggest problem is not believing how the other party feels and not reading the room. Besides that, great talk. James was dope. No, I am the room. You think I can't read the room? What is with you people thinking I'm like socially retarded? I can read the room. If I have to agree with what other people say about themselves, then so do you. You have to agree with what I'm saying about myself. Then none of us can perceive anything or think anything about each other. Okay, do you want me to pretend? Do you want me to pretend I don't think that he is jaded and angry and hates these people when he brings up virtue signaling probably 20 times in our conversation, but you want me to pretend that that's not a sign that he is bitter and angry towards these people? What am I supposed to do? You want me to contort? You want me to lie and say I believe him? Do you want me to just not bring it up because it's rude? Do you want me to just change the subject and say, okay, well, if that's what you say, that's fine. Let's just move on. Or do you want me to actually contort my worldview so that when people say good things about themselves, like that they're not hateful or angry or bitter, then it's true? That's virtue signaling. That's literally the thing he's complaining about. The conversation is about me saying, hey, so these people are saying they're concerned about children. He's saying, well, they're not. They think they are, but they're not. They're working through their fucking psychological problems. They don't feel how they think they feel. We shouldn't believe them. And I'm like, well, what if we just give them like the benefit of the doubt? He's like, no, never give anybody the benefit of the doubt when they're talking about their feelings. They don't know what they're feeling. They don't know who they are. They don't know their own motivations. And I'm like, okay, well, I think your motivations are slightly different from what you think. I think there's some component. And he's like, no, fuck you. When I say who I am, you have to believe it. When I say what I'm thinking, then it's true. Actually, he didn't say that, but you're saying that. You're saying I have to believe his statements about his own internal motivations for not believing other people's internal motivations. No! You guys are fucking pussies. Jesus fucking Christ. Fuck you. No, you're gaslighting me. You're gaslighting me. You're gaslighting me. He's doing the exact same thing I'm doing. But because I know I'm doing it, because I'm acknowledging that it's happening, I could do it in a way where people don't know it's happening. You want me to start lying to you so you can feel better about watching my streams, you sick fucking perverts? You want me to start pretending I'm not dissecting people? No, I am straightforward. And people are like, oh, you're not empathetic because you don't believe what people say about themselves. That's not what empathy is. They're not fucking related. They have nothing to do with each other. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. Empathy is when you can connect to and understand the feelings of another person. That requires either reading into things they have not said or not believing things they have said. If you are empathetic, then there will be times where you disagree with people's statements or lack of statements about themselves. That's literally, definitionally a fact. Empathy is not when you just believe things people say to you. Jesus Christ. No. No. You just don't like it because it makes people uncomfortable or it makes you uncomfortable or you think it's rude or maybe you're virtue signaling. Maybe you're not uncomfortable. Maybe you want me to keep doing it because you like watching it. Huh? Is that my role? Are we role playing? You want me to keep doing it because you like watching it? But then you get to be the person in the audience and say, oh, I wish he wouldn't do that. Oh, this was such a good chat. I wish that Mr. Girl would just get along with everybody when he talks to them. I wish that he and Lauren would just get along and just talk about the issues. Why is there so much interpersonal drama on these streams? I don't want to see that. I just want to see a nice chat. You're lying. You're fucking lying. I know. I know what's inside of you. Stop telling me. Just change how I talk to people. Stop it. Nick, too bad for you. Mr. Girl can't read the room. $5. Thank you. Your criticisms of me in this regard are stupid. They're just stupid. Here are some fair criticisms to make. That it takes up too much time and I should just move on when I realize I've hit an impasse with somebody and they're not going to listen to my feedback. That's different from saying my feedback is wrong if the person I'm talking to says it's wrong. You could say they're not interested in that kind of conversation with you. That's fine. That's fair. But I would push back and say, you know what? I think if we're listening to this person talk about their views of why people are doing the things they're doing, not just reporting studies and facts, but attaching them to this is what I think is happening socially, then I think it is also worth pressing him a bit on, hey, as you're opining about the motivations of these people who are your naysayers and disagree with you, the embattled researcher, doctor, do you think maybe you fucking hate them? I think that's worth asking. $10 from BPOW. Just want to send you money because you are you. Thank you. Yeah, you could just say it's unprofessional. That's true. But I do not accept the criticism that it is unempathetic to disagree with what people say about themselves. I think you just don't understand what empathy is. It's okay, you're not an empath. You didn't know. Or I don't accept your criticism that I can't read the room. Like maybe you see something different when you look at a person talking about, like maybe, do you want me to explain it to you? Do you want me to help you read it? Do you think I don't know? I don't know how people are feeling when I'm talking to them? Like, okay, saying I understand your secret feelings about yourself that you're not sharing with me or anybody and that you're not even aware of, that, yeah, that's definitely reaching. But and like, so you can say, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just pulling it out of my ass. Yeah, I'm wrong. That's fine. But to say I don't know socially what's happening when people are like calling me insane, like people's reactions to me are not that subtle. You know, I could see the chat. I can literally read the room. You're just saying what you're thinking in the chat. When is Lauren going to admit that she likes you? I don't know, but I think she learned her lesson from the last stream. That she better, the next time we talk, she better fucking be ready. Ugh. The dude seemed like he was mildly fascinated by you, but also kind of bored. He's just jet lagged. Stop lying. What do you think I'm lying about, Yawn God? You're such a naysayer. The lady doth protest too much. Yeah. Max needs a joint. I need a joint like I need a club. I need a jazz club called Mr. Girl's Smooth Jazz. That's the kind of joint I need. He was definitely pretty patronizing. He did feel pretty patronizing. You're lying to yourself. Aren't we all? I thought she likes you but doesn't know if she can trust you. Yeah. Well, she better figure it out. $5. Don't you think it's from S3? Don't you think it's gaslighting when you say people are angry when they say they aren't? Doctor seemed more bored than angry. I don't think he's angry at me. I think he's angry at people trying to crucify him when he's ultimately trying to help people. Especially he's trying to help children, and people are trying to crucify him for it. I think he's justifiably angry. I would be surprised. The idea that he's not angry is almost like unfathomable to me. But no, it's not telling somebody you don't believe what they're saying about themselves isn't gaslighting. Gaslighting is when you lie about that. Okay? So let's use Shaylin as an example. Let's say I'm trying to make Shaylin do something. It's my birthday tomorrow. What do I want Shaylin to do for my birthday in my fantasy, in my hypothetical fantasy? Let's say I want Shaylin to make me a fruit salad. And I say, Shaylin, do you want to make me a fruit salad? She says, no. And I say, well, do you think that you feel pressured by the fact that it's my birthday? And that's making you say no just because you don't want to be told what to do on my birthday? But maybe you really do want to make a fruit salad. And if I construct that response, knowing that she probably just doesn't want to, but I'm trying to confuse her into being like, oh, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, you're right. I'm afraid of domesticity, and I did want to make a fruit. I've been meaning to eat more of like fruit, blah blah. Then I'm gaslighting her. Gaslighting is telling people things about themselves that you know aren't true to convince them that they are, to make them do or feel the way you want. Gaslighting is not when somebody is like crying or looks like they've just been crying, or something traumatic happens to them. Like if somebody's like family dies in a plane crash, and then the next day they're like, I'm fine. I'm over it. I watched a self-help YouTuber. I watched Mr. Beast, and he cheered me up, and I'm feeling fine now. I think that like what I want to give with my life, I don't need to be selfish. My attachment to my family was selfish. So now they're all dead. I'm free from that. I want to go out and then give money to homeless people or whatever. It's not gaslighting to say like, hey, I think actually you're really upset and you've undergone a traumatic event, and like you should take some time, like, you know, to kind of process these feelings. I'm worried about you. That's not gaslighting, even though you're disagreeing with their statement of their own feelings. It's more obvious in that example. So you can say it's gaslighting because you think I'm wrong, but that's not gaslighting. It's a manipulation. It's an intentional manipulation. Disagreeing is seen as attacking their intelligence. 350 from Arnold Lay. Thank you. Yeah. Your intelligence about yourself has a limit, and when somebody points it out to you by saying, I think you're either misrepresenting your feelings or not aware of them, yeah, you're highlighting like a blind spot. But like that's part of being friends with people. I think if anything, I'm just acting more intimate with people than it's appropriate, because I don't know them. We don't have any established trust. He's clearly guarded about this whole thing, and I'm saying like, well, let me reach into your feelings box and pull out a wet one and see what you think of it. Yeah, that can be invasive. I'll cop to being invasive. I just think gaslighting implies that I'm trying to hurt people or use them, or that I'm lying. Mostly that I'm lying, and I really believe what I'm saying. This is dating advice. Yes. I think people need to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Thank you for the $10, Trap Leader. Yeah, that'd be nice. Especially if we're going to talk about pedophilia. Like, it's just going to be uncomfortable. $5 from Johnson Pike. Starting to disbelieve you with the Glink mom and Craigslist guy story. It's hard to defend you when my morals are different if you catch my panel. Starting to disbelieve you with the Glink mom and Craigslist guy story. Oh. Mom and Craigslist guy story. What story with Glink's mom? That I masturbated in front of a girl and her mother at a party? Let's see if that... I made a video about that. You really want to get into it. I don't know if it's still. I took it down from YouTube because I didn't want to get my channel banned, and I don't know if it's up. It is up on my website. Okay, if you want to hear about the time that I masturbated in front of a girl and her mother at a CFNM party in detail, I told this story 3 years ago, and I'm going to put it in the chat. Just for you, Johnson. Okay, what's the other story? Craigslist guy who gave me hand jobs, $140 a pop. I don't know why you don't agree with that. I don't have any other contemporary evidence of that. I don't know what do you mean you don't believe me? Why? I just I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't believe me. Are you expecting some kind of catharsis during your interviews from the confrontation? No, I'm just trying to I'm saying it's like I'm hitting a wall where I'm like, "Hey, I can't I'm trying to plug you and your expertise into the systemic understanding of what's happening between people. And when you keep dehumanizing everybody who disagrees with you and me, I like we're hitting a wall that I can't get past. I need you to stop doing that. Or I need you to at least be willing to hear some counter arguments to what you're saying without saying, "Oh, that's a hypothetical. I can't entertain it." You might as well say 2 + 2 is 7. Like, you're just refusing to think about this in any way other than you already think about it, and you're refusing to humanize the people who disagree with you. So it's like reading a book, but worse, because the book isn't like calling you like a moron the whole time you're reading it. So I'm just trying. I'm saying like you're making what I'm trying to do impossible. $2 from the Clark Hunt. Happy birthday. Do you and Renee have any plans? Actually, we do. I do think I'm going to begin filming. But it's tax day, so I gotta do my taxes. I kind of have to go now to do that because I only have a few hours. My taxes aren't that complicated, but you know, probably should have started it before now. But after the taxes, then I'm gonna do the doll's taxes. $2 from Sausage Lord. Will the doll give you birthday intercourse or cake? I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too, baby. Stop disagreeing with Mr. Girl, guys. Yeah, it just really derails everything. Renee is my real doll. My sex doll. No tax stream? I don't think I'm going to do a tax stream. $2 from Johnson. Thank you again. Good night, buddy. Good night. I hope you get your fruit salad. Bro, it's pretty late to do your taxes. Yeah. Well, it is pretty late. You can file them late. You just have to pay a fee. Yeah, I think I'll be able to get them done in time. I disagree with Mr. Girl. Good for you. I want you to disagree with me. Look, when I'm screaming at you, it's just part of the relationship. You know? I welcome your feedback, even when I think it's horribly wrong. That's something I have to tell, you know, people I date. Just because I'm freaking out and screaming doesn't mean that things are going wrong. Right? That's just part of it. And I see a lot of streamers screaming at their chats, and I get it. Today is the last day. Yeah, I have got 4 hours to do my taxes. Is the dollar dependent? I probably won't mention the doll in my tax return. Any update with the Dr. K stuff? No. No updates. I don't think he was dehumanizing. I think he was. He was just reducing people to virtue signaling, which is the most. And then I was like, why do you think they're virtue signaling? And he was just like, because they're self-righteous. And I was like, what do you think it's fear of like the mob? Anything humanizing in the virtue signaling? And he's like, nope. I think that was dehumanizing. Screaming is not a healthy relationship, clown. All right, Brenda. Maybe we don't have a healthy relationship. Maybe there's no such thing as a healthy relationship. Brenda. I haven't used the doll yet, but I think in the next couple days, it's time to start using, filming, start the relationship with the doll. My battery's all charged up. I'm ready to go. What type of relationship are you and your partner in? Me and Shaylin have a intimate relationship. I prioritize intimacy over health. Brenda got a baby? There are such things, Max. No, there's not, Brenda. It's all labels. Healthy is what one person's healthy is another person's unhealthy. There's whatever you want from your relationship. I think we should define it more of two people coming together to create something that both of them want or that they strive for. You can't even have a relationship you want. You just gotta try. Oh God. You better make sure the doll nuts. Yeah, this is... The doll's not going to feel pleasure, only pain. Oh, what... open or where we have a monogamous relationship? Yeah. All right. No, Shaylin's not allowed to use the doll right now. Would you open up your relationship for Steven? No. No. I won't open it for anybody. But if I did, it would be for Steven. No. Okay. I gotta go. I gotta start my my birthday taxes. You're retreating into sophistry. Brenda, I'm gonna let you have the last word with that. Thank you for watching my stream. My next stream will be the day after tomorrow when I'm 37. I will be streaming with Ella, AELLA, Ella Girl on Twitter, at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. And then I'm streaming with Brittany Simon at 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And that is my week. I'll see you if you are joining me for those, or you'll see me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. Yeah. No, my birthday's the 19th. Yeah. That 420 is Hitler's birthday. I'm the 19th. All right. Thank you. Goodbye, horses.